this walk, we did this, the Historical Society did this walk 30 years ago. Designed it and got it approved by, I don't even know what they call themselves now. Parks now, but at the time they had a different name. So, the whole idea here is to give you a bit of an idea of what's around the monument. And over here we've got the red clay surfacing. This is classic type of mining and it's actually part of Deason and Oates' claim, where they took the surface material away to a puddler and treated it through a puddler to extract the gold. And so you'll get a lot of that, basically as far as you can see here, all the red clay, and it probably came a little bit further, but you've got a bit of erosion come over the top of it and sticks and stuff. So they actually mined quite a big area here. They were working 1862 to 1875, so two blokes working for 13 years, shoveling the dirt off the surface and taking it down the hill. Over that period of time you're going to do a lot. So this is what we call surfacing. Once they did that, once they found the welcome stranger, it became very popular to do a lot of surfacing around here. And when you drove in on the bitumen road, on the monument track, there's a lot of surfacing each side of that. There's big areas of red clay. It had to have gold. They might have had this idea that they were going to find a big nugget, but they still had to find enough gold to make it worth their while. And the crucial difference between here and a lot of other places, like you get masses of surfacing down at, say, Castlemaine or Talbot, they had water. They had water races. Moliagul they didn't. So they were relying totally on dams, and so the material that they surfaced had to be of a richer grade. That's the crucial difference here. Let's move on. Okay. If you just pass the sign there that says Deason's hut side, when we did the walk 30 years ago, and the forestry, I can't think what they called themselves, but they provided the signs and we put them in, but they didn't use the right side of wood and all the posts got eaten by termites and then they had to come and redo them. And for some reason, unbeknownst to us, there's a sign there that says Deason's hut site. When they put the signs back up again, they put the sign there. Wrong. Deason's hut was back where those cars are parked. There's a picnic table and it's pretty well right on the spot of where their hut was. And we've got Deason and Oates puddler just here. We've got a circular trench. That's their puddling machine. So all the material from their claim was brought down here by the horse and cart and put through the puddler. Puddler requires a dam, so we've got a dam here, and they had a secondary dam further up the gully to supply extra water to it. Basically with a puddler, it's a circular trench that is timbered and clay put in to make it waterproof. Horse walks around the outside and drags a series of chains around. And the whole idea is you put the material in that you want to treat, there's clay in it, clay becomes sticky, gold sticks to clay and runs out and you lose it. So when it was clay material like you've got here, they had to wash it thoroughly, and a puddler was the best process for that. So as the horse walks round and round, the chains get dragged through the material, it all turns into a slush. They'll drain that away, and effectively be left with just stones, and maybe once a fortnight they will stop, they will clean all the stones out of the bottom of the puddler and put it through a cradle and separate the gold from it. Sludge was a big issue back then, so you can see they've got a little bit of an embankment across here, so that the material that came down, it didn't just run down into the creek, it was held back. The sludge would dry out and build up on the surface. It was just a way of trying not to turn all the waterways around here into just mud. So they were very big on that right from the 1850s, that you have to keep your sludge out of the waterways, which was a good system. And so it's hard to know really how much dirt is actually in here, how much they've built the ground level up. But another way of looking at it is all the material that was on that hill has come through this puddler and out the bottom of the puddler and is spread out here somewhere. So this ground level must be raised to a certain degree. No worries. And if you get any questions, just corner me. Failing that, we'll move to the next spot. This is the first bit of land that Deason and Oates purchased, and so they were doing a bit of farming and mining. As often happened, and you'll notice that with nearly all of the local families around here that were miners and became farmers, they purchased land usually within about a kilometre of where they were mining. So initially they buy the land, they've got to clear it and fence it and put a crop in or whatever they're doing with it, and that all takes time and there's no income. And so you'll find that for a number of years they were combining farming and mining. Mining likewise was not really a good full-time thing, because when you're puddling you have to have water in the dam, and once they've used that water, they've got to wait till it rains again. And so they might have been doing a lot of mining, but it was not full-time, and so combining farming worked out well for them. So we've got a little bit of remains from Oates' house. When they first started in 1862, they built a little bit of a hut, Deason's, and they were there, and Richard Oates lived with them. But after a while, I think 2 became 3, became 4, and then 5 kids. Richard Oates had made up his mind, "No, I'm out of here," and built his own little hut here. After he found the welcome stranger and went back to England, got married and come out here, one would assume he enlarged this hut because he came out ahead of his wife Jane. So he probably increased the size of the hut, made it a little bit more presentable, and Richard and his new wife Jane shifted into this hut here. And they were living here for another 3 years. Let's move on. There was an older local in Moliagul who pointed out the wooden peg just inside the paddock there and said he remembered years ago you could still see the Chinese writing on it. And we were happy with that, Parks were happy with that, and that's regarded as a Chinese grave, and it's on the walk as a Chinese grave. But 30 years we're a little bit smarter, a little bit of hindsight. We now know that this was the corner of the paddock, and that piece of wood was just to stay to go against the stay for the corner post for the fence. So there's been a lot of people fooled by that. A lot of people look at that peg in the ground and say, "Oh, how interesting." Well, it's not so interesting. It's just the way how myths keep going. But it was helped by the fact that we got a Chinese camp just ahead of us, so that's our next stop. The Chinese camp, Chinese often lived close to each other, a little bit for company, a little bit for security, and a classic, apart from the fact that there's been Chinese coins and Chinese pottery found around here, one of your classics is huts close together. So you've got piles, each pile effectively represents a chimney, and there's some raised dirt floors, and when you look down this strip here, we've got a narrow laneway effectively, which was another characteristic of Chinese camps, that there was usually just enough room to get between them and not much more. Moliagul had a significant Chinese population, and if we ever look at history, we love to talk about the interaction, all the problems with the Chinese and blah blah blah. Generally, pretty well in a nutshell, Moliagul was very there was a lot of good interaction. There's a number of the families around Moliagul had descended from Chinese that took European wives. There were market gardeners here. They were miners. They were, in a nutshell, they were generally pretty well respected. There was one exception in the early 1860s, further down the lead here, down towards the cemetery. There was a riot. You've all heard about Chinese riots in different goldfields, where a group of European miners come and attack the Chinese and push them out. This Chinese riot was different. It was Irish, Southern Irish. They called themselves the Emeralders. They came with picks and sticks, and they pushed the Chinese off the rich ground that they were working at the time. The difference with this riot is this time the Chinese went and got some mates and regrouped and came back with picks, more picks and bamboo stakes, and attacked the Irish and pushed them off the goldfield. So there's a little bit of justice sometimes.